So I lived in Dubai for 16 years of my life. My parents are both Lebanese and they raised us in a Lebanese household. We moved to Canada around 6 years ago and we've been living in Vaughan since. So moving to Canada, we had to accommodate a lot of our dishes because it was a lot harder to find some of the ingredients and it was also very expensive. Like one food I can probably think of on the top of my head is stuffed zucchinis. And in Canada, they only use the large green ones versus the smaller ones that we usually use back home. That's like one of my favorite dishes and we don't cook it as often anymore. We were definitely able to keep our culture alive better in Dubai just because we had a closer community with Lebanese people versus here we had to kind of accommodate into the Western culture a little bit more, and it was easier to find healthier options as well. The person that's responsible for cooking in my house for sure is my mother. She has been cooking for us for almost 20 years and she is always inspiring us to hide in the kitchen as well and help her whenever we can. It's hard to find some time to cook a meal for myself, so I usually rely on what my mother has made for the day, and she's mostly taught me a lot of the meals that I make today. Regarding any table manners that we have in our house, there might be some that I'm overlooking, but maybe my father is always seated at the head of the table just out of respect, and we don't get up from the table unless we're all done eating. As one of the coolest dishes that we have as a Lebanese culture is eating raw beef. We call it kibinei. Basically, it's ground beef and it's ground with onions and some bulgur in English, which is bulgur. It's safe to eat as long as it's not kept outside for too long, obviously. And it's really good to eat, and we usually have it when we have people over for dinner. Personally, I think our community is generalized into the general Middle Eastern population. However, people forget that we are all from different countries with different cultures, with different foods. I personally don't feel very connected to my culture, especially because Canada is a super multicultural country and there's not a lot of Lebanese community, especially around Ryerson. However, we do have a church that we usually go to that is Lebanese, and when I visit on the weekends, it kind of feels like home, but that's not very frequent.
Ready to go? Okay, so my name is Michelle Bouzaid, and I was born in Windsor, Ontario, as part of a large Lebanese family that had come over pre-World War I. To Canada, well, to the States and then to Canada. I'm half Lebanese, and my mother is English-Irish descent, and my father is Lebanese descent. My mother learned how to cook a lot of the Lebanese food from my grandmother, but she worked full-time when I was a child, so she didn't have a lot of time. This food's very labor-intensive to make, so it's not something you just whip together at the last minute when you get home from work. So she had learned how to make it all. She loved the food, and then so I learned certain things from her. We would get it all the time when we went to my grandparents' house. Like my grandmother was just in the kitchen all day, every day, making all kinds of food. So when we went over there, we'd be eating all this food, and right from the start. So we all grew up loving it, and it was always a big deal to be able to go and have it. Well, no, definitely my grandmother was the kitchen. She was in charge of everything, her and her mother. For my family, my mom was the cook. And then after my grandmother died on my dad's side, he started learning. He never really cooked Lebanese food. He never really cooked much at all. He started learning how to cook Lebanese food from his sisters because he missed his mother's cooking. And so then what I hadn't learned from my mom and from some of my aunts, I learned from my dad. Oh yeah, definitely. There's way more available to us now. And even, like I was telling you before, that we have a Syrian refugee who's cooking. And one of her biggest worries, she said, when they were leaving, to come here was that she wasn't going to be able to have the food that she liked. So she's completely amazed that she can go to the grocery stores in Toronto, not Loblaws or whatever, but like some of the grocery stores in the outskirts of the city and get pretty much everything she's used to cooking with. Well, obviously there's a huge emotional component to it where it's about family and it's about big, large family gatherings and everybody being really excited. For me, one of my, strongest memories of my grandmother is just like running into that kitchen the second I set foot in the house and seeing what she was cooking. And she would always give me something to eat immediately, right? Like even if it wasn't ready, it was just like, here, try this. So, I mean, there's so much bound up in that, right? Like family and, but for me, for the most part nowadays, it just means healthy, good, delicious food. Cardamom, cilantro, coriander, cumin, cinnamon and allspice, pepper, sumac, dried mint. These are all found in a lot of different recipes. And you'd be surprised what spices are in them. Like, you wouldn't, at least to the Western trained cook, it's like, oh, you're putting this and this, and it's like, yeah, and it's amazing, right? I'd have to say tabbouleh. And tabbouleh, I've always loved it. It's just so fresh, and you can just feel all the nutrients and the olive oil and the lemon juice. You can just kind of feel it soaking into your body as you're eating it. So I always loved the taste, and then as the older I got, I came to appreciate how healthy it was and what it was doing for me. And it's just the kind of thing I could eat. When I used to make it at home before opening the restaurant, I basically eat a whole bowl. It was enough for like 5 or 6 people. I'd just eat it as soon as I finished making it. So, yeah, tabbouleh is my favorite thing to eat. Well, it all depends. There are some places, I don't want to be bragging, but I'd say some of our stuff is closest to there. We're very different than the Alibabas and the Paramounts and the chains, right? Any kind of fast food suffers, as far as I'm concerned, right? You try to mass produce and have multiple locations, the quality of the food's going to go down a little bit. So there are places here and there that are doing it really well, I think.
Very beginning, and here is the beautiful, delicious food.
I think he's
Okay, while we're convincing, here you have. This is my Lebanese way of doing it. So we break bread together. So we're having za'atar, the most delicious. The main mix, not the red and the green.
right.
It's za'atar. Za'atar is thyme, dried thyme, mixed with sumac. And sumac is, this is the question that they ask me, where do you find sumac? I say to my lovely Canadian, look around you. All what you see is sumac trees. So you have sesame seeds, you have sumac, and you have the za'atar, the dried za'atar, all together mixed. And you add olive oil to it, you mix it, get that paste, and spread it on any piece of bread.
It's delicious.
Now you top it up with whatever you want. Tomatoes, mint, yogurt, cheese, add it up and enjoy it. So one of the best things to do is you do it like this. The balkoum, a bite. My mom told me don't talk when you're eating. My name is Radwan Abu Faisal. I've been a teacher in Lebanon for languages in high schools till 1989, when I decided to make a move to Canada with my wife, who was pregnant at that time. And the bombs are all over the places. I don't want to go in details about this terrible trip, but here we are in this most beautiful country. I came with no English at all. It's a French and Lebanese, Arabic languages. And I made it. Thank God I made it over here. And been teaching since, let's say 1991, something like this. When we came in 1989, it was very difficult. Actually, we were looking for especially pita bread, and we couldn't find it. One more spot in Scarborough or bakery, we used to drive from Mississauga to buy our Lebanese goods, between brackets. And with that time, and you can say, you know what, in one hand, it's the tragic moments of the Lebanese people and the Syrian and the Middle Eastern there that brought them over here. And the good thing, on the other hand, that they're safe over here. They brought their culture with them, and they open up businesses, and now you can find everything you want. I am a good cook. I am really, really a good cook. One of my hobbies is to come home from school, used to, right away with my tie and whatever, start making a new meal every single day for my girls and for my wife. If I ask you the question, where did you pick it up?
I think almost everyone's answer is gonna be their mom.
Absolutely. So I used to be there beside my mom in the old, my own town, little town in Lebanon. We were 7 brothers, to tell you the truth. So mom and dad had 7 boys only. And I was the middle one, always around my mom and dad, actually, and watching and helping. So bring me this, bring me that, watch this, help me with this. Yes, I really picked it up from my mom's love to prepare the dishes and the meals for her family. I cannot say I have only one dish, but I can say my favorite meals are those very authentic, old Lebanese cuisine that involves grains in them, from lentils to chickpeas to fava beans to green beans, all of these Romano stuff, whatever. Plus our own the wheat, not cracked wheat. We say it's wrong. It's the burghul Lebanese way, or bulgur. What's written now in the bags everywhere you go in the stores. There I can find myself eating all of these and making all of these very delicious, nice, very authentic meals. You prefer to eat with forks and knives and whatever. I prefer to eat with my hands. I keep it within my heart, and when my practice, when we sit to the table, we have to sit, and we have to start together. And I always start with a prayer and thanking God for all the gifts. And I ended up, please give those who are less fortunate than us. Amen. 1860, I believe, when the first Lebanese really came to this country, to Nova Scotia area, like most of the Lebanese at that time, by boat. And it wasn't represented well. But now I can say, yes, it is. We are involved in politics, Lebanese community, everywhere, in every single committee here and there. And we are really, I'm not saying pushing ourselves, it's the will within us to share our own culture and knowledge and intelligence with the Canadian society. Talk about having our own churches now, church in Mississauga, Richmond Hill, in Brampton, downtown Toronto. So we have everything now, all those facilities, to accommodate our needs. The spiritual is one, and you name it. I love this. When it comes to mind, it is family getting together and the friends. And I like this. You see, now I have the red thing. When never had, myself especially, and I learned this from my parents and my little town too. Never had a coffee by myself. Always you have people around you. Never have a drink of arak, the Lebanese drink, without people. Always we're shouting out, hey, what you doing? Come over here, we're doing za'atar, we're making bread, we're doing something. So yes, it is family or breaking bread together. This is what comes to my mind right away.